Well, hey there. How you doing? Dave Fennoy here. Another Wednesday, and of course, that means another Ask Dave Fennoy Anything. Before we join our guest, little cleaning up of things. If you'd like to get in touch with me for a demo, only doing video game demos, davefennoy.com. If you want to see this, because you can't hang around for the full hour, or any other Ask Dave Fennoy's Anything, you can visit my YouTube channel, Dave Fennoy Voiceover Training, and that is where they all live. Also, I want to remind you, tomorrow I'll be doing the State of VO, and let's see, I've got it here someplace. Oh, I lost it. But I'll be doing the State of VO with Joan Baker and Mark Gus. You have to register for this. It's free. It's a Zoom thing. But you can register for free at sovas.org/RSVP. And someone, you can fill out the form, and you send in a question. And I'm going to pick somebody's question that's going to win a Chaotica eyeball. And somebody is also going to win an hour of voiceover coaching with me. So it'd be worth it to tune in, because not only will there be things to learn, and I'm sure they're going to ask me stuff about me and my career that I would have never thought to divulge to anybody. So we'll see. Also today, busy day for me. I got to do press for most of the day, from 9 till about 1. I was doing press. I am in the upcoming Marvel game, The War for Wakanda. I play Zara Wari, who is the witch doctor, priest, magician, counselor to Wakanda's kings for a few generations, and this game is going to be crazy. Oh, and there's a screenshot of there I am with one fellow who was putting us together. That's Riley, and Deborah Wilson, and Erica Luttrell. And we had a wonderful time for about 5 hours talking to people all across the world. Well, without further ado, let me introduce you to a good friend of mine. He's been in this voiceover business for 20 years or so, maybe more, I'm not sure. But Gavin Hammon, come say hello. My Kenny for Walking Dead fans.
Hey,
Kenny.
Dave.
Hey. Oh, wait a minute.
Lee, buddy. So good to see you again.
Yeah. So good to see you too, man. And I noticed that you have some toys in the background there.
Yeah, I got a couple. There are toys around me. Fortunately, you can't see this whole space because they're everywhere. They're in front of me. They're behind me, as you can see the ones behind me. They're in the room behind me as well. So, yeah, I've been collecting toys for way too long.
I was going to say how long, and you were pretty much into dolls. Oh, I mean action figures.
Yeah, couple dolls. Probably my whole life. So almost 48 years of buying and keeping crap. But I just enjoy it, and they make nice diffusers. So
does your wife ever, look at you a little funny because of all the toys there?
Well, she knew about all of this before she married me.
And she married you anyway.
And she married me anyway. She doesn't really come into this room anymore, though, because it has sort of taken on a life of its own. But there's drum kits out there too, so I've got a couple drum sets so I can jam or whatever.
Okay. Now, you've been being successful in this business for, 20 years?
This is my 17th year.
17 years.
Yes, 17.
Yeah,
so
I know sometimes I do the same thing. And I've been doing this for at least 20. I'll make that 31 years.
Right? This is the longest job I've had in my life. So.
Wow. Well, I tell people all the time, hey, it beats working for a living.
Oh my God, yeah.
So, how did you get started? What got you into this wacky business of voiceover?
So I was in a band in the 1990s called Dance Hall Crashers, a ska band. We played a lot of punk shows and toured around the world and whatnot. And when we stopped playing in kind of maybe around 2000 or so, when we stopped touring, I was working in construction, and my dad, said to me, as I was digging a ditch on an electrical installation job, he's like, "There's this lady who has a voiceover school on the radio, and you should listen to it." I'd always done voices and mimicked, cartoons and accents and whatnot. Just, I don't know. It's sort of, I was just what I'd always done
So
as a
wait
kid.
a minute. Let me get this straight. Your dad
Yeah.
what was saying that all those funny, crazy voices you were doing were probably a career. He had that kind of vision.
He did. Yeah,
Good
which
for
blows me
him.
away because
God bless him.
I didn't even know anything about. It never occurred to me that that was even something that people did, or that it was something that I would do. Because I grew up in the Bay Area, and I mean, it wasn't like LA where you meet people that do it, or animation people or anything like that. In the Bay Area, it was like just a commercial town, and like interactive stuff was coming up a little bit in the early 2000s. But
Which is
yeah,
why I left in 1990.
he's smart. Yeah. But no, so I took classes at Voice Tracks in Sausalito and fell in love with it, and grinded out classes for about 5 years. My wife was very encouraging during the discouraging times when you're just trying to get signed and do something. And then eventually I did. I got signed and started working in games and commercials and stuff. I met you, and everything just fell into place. So
Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Well, thanks. The check's in the mail. Why? Well,
DaveFinley.com.
that's a great story. It's interesting. I was there doing radio,
I
and
remember.
and when Samantha first came to town and opened Voice Track San Francisco, I was one of the first students there
Nice.
with a buddy of mine, Toby Gleason, who I'm not sure is you'd probably know Toby,
Yeah.
uh, but I did a workshop. And she brought one of her agents up from Los Angeles. And at the end of the workshop, oh, if you ever decide to come to Los Angeles, we'd love to represent you. I
Yeah.
had no idea at the time how fortunate I was. So, anyway, let's talk about you. So, you started working, and one of the things you have done a lot of is voices for toys.
I have done tens of thousands of lines for interactive toys. I voiced the Furby toy when it kind of came back in 2010 through 2016 or so. I was most of those iterations and most of the localized versions in 13 different languages. Um, so I've done a ton of toys. I did a lot of educational toys for Leapfrog and stuff like that, and then just kind of random voice match things that come up. There are two really big, like toy production houses here in the Bay Area, and so I was just fortunate to kind of get in with both of them. And yeah, that was a huge amount of work for me. Kind of early 2000s, 2000 through 2010. I was
I
doing.
remember shortly after the Walking Dead game and all its success, you went
Yay!
back to or started doing Furby, and
Yeah.
I remember we were having a conversation. It was about doing some other kind of job or something. I'm really kind of tied up for the next year. Uh,
Yeah.
tell me about that. Tell me about those golden handcuffs.
I remember. So pretty much, I think throughout the entirety of working on at least the first two seasons of The Walking Dead, I was working on Furby, especially Wolf Among Us too. So there were days where I'd get up. And the place that was recording that was called Creativity Incorporated, and they're down in a town called San Carlos, which is kind of Redwood City near San Jose, in the Silicon Valley. And I live in the North Bay, so about maybe 60, 80 miles away. through,
So are
you
you
know,
like up in Benicia or?
yeah, or thereabouts.
Yeah.
I would come down through, basically across three bridges and many highways. It'd take, a couple hours in the morning, sometimes 3 hours to get there. And I'd have to be there at 9. And I'd usually do 4 hour sessions, 9 to 1, and then potentially
Ooh.
drive up to Jory's in Fairfax. May
Oh
he
boy.
rest in peace.
May he
And
rest in peace.
record, up there in the afternoon whenever I could get there. So there'd be days where, yeah, I would have like, 6, 8, 10 hours worth of actual recording with all of the commuting in between. And then you get home and you got to audition whatever's due the next day. And I wouldn't be able to do anything in the morning because I'd have to usually get up at 6 and start driving to creativity. So
So, what did that do to your voice?
nothing. I'm pretty resilient. I kind of always have been. I used to, as a kid, like on the playground, I would scream a lot. And so I would lose my voice pretty much every day because I'd just be yelling and hooting and hollering. You might even hear one of my kids in the background hooting and hollering.
Because they have the
So
same genes.
they do. So yeah, I was always just pretty resilient. So, and I wasn't doing anything. Well, actually, that's not true at all. I was going to say it wasn't vocally stressful, but a couple of those Furby personalities. There was one that was the rock star, and I would have to do all these crazy like heavy metal runs and stuff that I would make up, which was pretty fun. But yeah, so I was really thrashing the heck out of myself. But
Oh, so
I'm still
so
alive.
well, you just brought up something about your Furby years that I had no. You had Furbies that were playing, or you're playing different iterations of Furby.
Yeah.
What did Furby sound? What was the basic Furby sound?
So the bass Furby voice was like this: Da do a Coco nu ba ba
Whatever it sounds like. That is basically the bass voice. And then each Furby would change personalities. And each one would have between 4 and 6 different personalities that were like totally different characters. And then sometimes we would do baby versions of those,
Oh,
which would
what?
be
Let me hear a baby Furby.
so the tricky thing is they would just be really higher and a lot slower because there was so much processing. They would do this like pitch shifting thing.
So the baby voice would be cuter and smaller.
And then they would speed that up a little bit, and sometimes they'd have to go real slow. Exactly. So sometimes they'd have to go real slow, so it still sounded like a baby. But
Oh,
yeah, there are tons of characters in that thing.
oh,
I was really stoked. I'm proud of them now because there's so much content in them, and I mean, it's like 80% like stream of consciousness, like right out of my brain. Just in terms of the sound and how it would react to things and songs it would sing was really just almost me improvising most of it. And
wait a minute.
it's like
I,
hundreds of hours.
I want to get more of this, but we've got somebody watching from Australia, from Dan and Nick
Bonza,
Miller, watching from Australia. Love this. Uh,
welcome.
yeah, welcome, Nick. Now, so give me an idea. Now, you're saying you're making up most of this. What would
Yeah.
the session be like? Who's the director? What are they telling you? What do you have on paper in front of you?
So the director would generally be, I would be directed mostly by Scott Paulson, the engineer. And he would just kind of, we would have a line that might be like, Furbish line, maybe a little bit of English. And then I would have to get it off the page. Sometimes it would be just like noises, or sometimes it would be like a transformation where I have to like give them 8 to 10 seconds worth of some kind of climactic sound, as it transforms from one character to the next.
Oh,
It would just
give me an example of that.
Those are too big. They're so over the top that it's gonna be embarrassing, and I'll never live it down because it'll
Oh,
end up on YouTube someplace, and I would
yeah,
hate
but
that.
that'll make you
Um,
famous, and more people will come to you. You'll get viewers and followers, and
Dave,
and
no one's ever gotten famous by voicing a toy. Never. We're like the least popular voiceover
you could be
category.
the first one.
Well, I'm just gonna have to take my chances, I think.
Okay. Well,
No, but
listen.
it would have these big sort of orgasmic kind of sounding things changing from one character to the next. They're crazy, but
Let me ask
a lot
you
of
this.
fine tuning.
Now, you say you stumbled into toys.
Yeah, I
If
did.
someone were interested in being a toy voice now, what would you recommend they do?
Well, they should take a class from me. I teach it now.
Ah,
Yeah, no, there's so many opportunities in toys. It's like you can really kind of have any sort of voice. You could be any age, you can be any ethnicity, any gender, and you can just kind of bring something to it because there's always room for like a sort of charactery reads or storyteller reads or what we call a base read, and where the base read that's like walking you through exercises or giving out rewards for doing something or just being kind of the foundation of whatever the toy is going to be. And yeah, there's tons of opportunities to still do that sort of stuff. There's less toy audio being produced in the United States because so much of it is going to other countries and whatnot. But
when you
especially
say going to other countries, are you talking about different languages, or are they just using English voices in other countries?
yep, that too. English voices in other countries.
Eh,
It happens, or they'll do it, production where it's cheaper, maybe in Canada, outsource it or something like that. It just depends.
God, there too. They're robbing us blind. They're sending our work someplace else.
Yeah.
So, you know, uh, we've had brief conversations about you being a toy voice. Mostly well, I'm kind of booked for the next 6 months, going every day to be Furby. Uh, but you're showing a whole other side now. You're telling us that the scripts really aren't scripts.
They are in certain things. It depends on the toy, really. Sometimes it's just, they just want you to make weird noise or laugh, or you might have one word to drive home, but you have to do it over this crazy kind of sound file depending on what sort of character you are. Educational toys, the scripts are the scripts,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it's like you don't veer from the script. It's like, in a way like promo, it's like you don't veer. With certain commercial copy, some, they just don't want you to change their
Anything. Yeah.
precious words. But it just kind of depends on, on what it is. And there's freedom in all aspects. I've had promo gigs that are really open and free, and they're just kind of like, yeah, we'll just figure it out. And if you want to ad lib it, do it. But it depends on the network, that sort of thing. But yeah, certain educational toys, especially because there's such like a focus to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely have to stay on
Okay.
script.
Back when you were Kenny and I was Lee Everett, did you have a
Good
home studio then?
I kind of did. When I started doing this job, I was like, I could kind of see that things were going to go that way. I mean, I was still showing up at the agency and, reading stuff, in person and getting feedback from the booth director. But I could see that it was going to start changing. The technology was getting there, microphones were reasonable. And so, pretty much from the very beginning, like the first time I started booking work and had money, I bought a U87 because I was like, I'm going to buy the best mic that I can afford at the time. And I'm going to like be set up so that I'm ready to do this from home. And that's always been my goal, which explains this bizarre space that I've built
Oh
here.
no, nothing explains all those action figures.
Well, it's my justification for it.
Yeah, there you go.
So I had a room in my house when we built our house. We bought a house in 2000, and when we built it, we raised the house up. And so I was playing in bands at the time. So I took one little room in the basement before we really did any sort of improving to the rest of this floor, and put mineral wool on the walls, put perforated metal up, and made it fairly soundproof or at least quieter for band practices and stuff. And then as I started doing this, I finished the walls with sheetrock and started to unpack some of the toys that were in storage or were living in other parts of the house and could kind of consolidate everything. And I was just using this whole room as a booth, but I'm still hearing sound from upstairs or I'm hearing something else. So eventually I built this little booth space, which only fits me. It's pretty tiny. And so
Do you
that's
ever, flailing and knock over the toys when you're?
all the time. Yeah, no. If I could, and I mean, some of these things are not even like secured, so it's like I can like knock something over and it's like clang.
Uh,
But I'm pretty, I'm usually pretty good about
a
not
quick
doing
question:
that.
how many toys do you have in there?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
I have to count them.
you don't count them.
Sure. Who does this? Yeah, no, I don't know. There's a bunch.
Oh boy. Well, everybody has to have a hobby of collecting something.
I
Um,
guess.
let's see, a couple little comments there of Jimmy Bancoli. Wow, another genre emerges, toys. Um,
Definitely.
and what I knew about this genre. Never really done that. I've done a lot of educational narration, but
Hmm.
not toys. And I had no idea you had to be quite so creative with the nonverbals.
Yeah, I mean, that was a surprise to me too. And that was something that has come up more recently. I had done so many educational toys that it was kind of a surprise to me too. I remember when I auditioned for Furby in the first place, they wouldn't tell me what it was. They just told me it had its own language, it was from another planet, it was fuzzy, it's 5 different characters. What does that sound like? Go. And I was like, I don't even know what you guys are talking about. So it didn't occur to me, and I don't think they told me like until like a couple weeks in that that's what it was. And I was like, oh, they're like, oh, you didn't know that? I was like, no, I had no idea.
No, nobody had authorization to tell you what it was, so nobody did.
Yeah, I probably don't have authorization to talk about it, but here we are.
Well,
So
you didn't. Let's see another comment here. Thomas Machin, how you doing? I had 4 Furbies just so they would talk to each other. My kids thought I was
thank you,
crazy.
Thomas.
I thought it was side-splitting funny. And both things, Thomas, could be true.
Yeah,
Side-splitting funny, and you're crazy. But
there was a lot of funny in some of the later iterations of Furby. We got to do some really silly stuff. And I got to do a lot of foreign language stuff too, which was fun and very hard. So
okay, got another comment here. Kristen Arena, really love hearing stories like these about this industry. Always had an interest in it. You guys are awesome. Keep up the amazing work. Lots of love from Canada, eh?
thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Kristen. Now you were talking about that microphone. You got a U87.
I
Uh,
did.
did it
You're
work?
hearing me through it right now.
Oh, fantastic. Because a lot of times U87's a mistake if you're in a smaller room.
Yeah, it's a mistake for me to use it in this room. Because it is way too much mic for this space. But when I was in the big room, it made sense, and it still sounds good. And it's like honestly, having it as an option for a client. Very few of my clients ask me to use like the 416 instead, which also is a great mic and sounds great in here because it's so small and like
Yeah.
has such a small diaphragm. So some really savvy, interactive recordists will say we want you on the 416, not the 87. But
Yeah.
generally, if I tell a client I've got an 87, they want it. Yeah,
Oh, we
they
want
want
the
it.
87. It's because they don't know. I
Yeah.
90% of the stuff I do, probably 95% of the stuff I do, I'm using my 416.
Yep.
Although I have a 103 in the booth, and I
I was
haven't pulled
thinking of
my
getting one.
U87 out in a while. So,
Yeah.
what's your sound chain? What's your studio like? Now we've heard about your booth. You've got the U87. What's your interface?
So I go into my preamp first, which is a Universal Audio LA 610 Mark II, which is just kind of a sort of mid-rangey tube that has compression and has a limiter, which I never ever use, but it's
That's
real basic.
that's a pretty older model
Yeah,
of because
yeah,
everybody now it's the twin, it's the quad, it's the 6, it's
right.
the 8. Ah,
Yeah, mine works good. It kind of meets my needs. I've had it for probably 8 or so years, and sounds good. It's as much as I need, and it because we really don't need a lot, and I think the tubes help. And then I just go into a Scarlett 2i2, and then into Pro Tools.
oh yeah, the Scarlett 2i2. Often when people ask me about, well, how do I get my studio set up? It costs so much, and I say, well, some things yes, some things no. The Scarlett
Yeah,
2i2 is very affordable and very good, especially for the money.
yeah, and it's got a pre in it,
Yeah,
so it's like for a basic startup or for like to get yourself going,
yeah.
a microphone and a Scarlett is maybe all you need, to begin with. Certainly for auditioning purposes, you'll sound as good as almost anybody.
Let's
But
see.
these days, probably people have better home setups.
Yeah. Another comment here. Joseph Jones. Wow, I love the your little graphic there. Man, I'd love to do this. Most of my gigs have been just ads. Haven't had the chance to break into anything like this. I don't think many people have had the chance to break into anything like this. This is a niche, I think, in voiceover that probably has a lot to do with where you are.
Yep, for sure.
You were mentioning the gaming company studios in the Bay Area.
Well, fewer now than we had before, because most of the production for games, interactive stuff, is definitely in Los Angeles,
Oh
as
yeah.
you know. Yeah.
Well, when I came to Los Angeles in 1990, games weren't even a thing for voiceover.
Right.
I
Yeah.
came here to do commercials and TV promos, and I thought I'd be the next Don LaFontaine doing movie trailers. But
Sure.
the
Why
industry,
not?
the industry had other plans for me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's kind of just where you end up. I'd said earlier that I sort of fell into toys. The reason I got like my first job at Leapfrog, and I think it was just doing like a bit character in like a talking book, was because one of my brother's best friends and a guy that I was in a band with was one of the engineers at Leapfrog at the time. And so it was like, he was like, yeah, I want to try to get my friend in, and so it was like the producer was super cool, and she was like, yeah, bring him in, we'll see how he is. And I'm not terrible at this, so it was at least I was able to show up and do the job. And yeah, and it just kind of went from there. And then a lot of my close, contacts and some of my clients that have moved to other places, I met through there. Like my teaching partner, the guy that I teach with, Chuck Wedge, he's a Leapfrog guy. So it was just a lot of it kind of started there. And then that just helped me to get, more auditions and more interest from, other places. Because once you can do that, you can definitely keep doing it.
Okay, well, this is going to lead into what you were just talking about, or return to it. Do different types of toys dictate the type of voice, e.g., will higher pitched voices always be preferred for toy type X, but lower voices tend to be used for toy type Y?
Well, I think it depends on kind of what it is. For educational toys, for whatever reason, most of the base narrators seem to be, non-threatening white guys. That's just kind of what they hire. I happen to be one of those. So it works out pretty well because, for me, the archetype is like Steve from Blue's Clues, like the original host who's just like your uncle, your cool uncle who doesn't ever judge or condescend. So that's going to be, a predominant voice print for at least those types of toys. But because, they'll have bit characters or storytellers that might need to be scary or quiet or female or, older or younger. There's a lot of opportunities, and there certainly can be in terms of the casting. One of the problem, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I imagine as we are kind of going through an awakening, demographic awakening of, hey, there are a lot of different people here from a lot of different places, a lot of different backgrounds, and they all need to work. That
they all need to represent. They all need
that's
to
what I'm saying.
represent themselves. Yeah.
So I would not be surprised if already we may be seeing some changes in that. I know.
I hope so.
Yeah, looking at auditions that come through now, they very much are looking for a variety of people. So many commercials now, a thing you never saw 10, 15 years ago, are for men or women. They don't care. This could be a male voice, could be a female voice. Early in my career, I think women were doing about 10% of the voiceover work. But that has changed, thankfully.
A lot more female voices like doing car commercials as well, which is a huge thing in the last 5 or so years.
Absolutely. Now, what are the kinds of things that you teach? And I'm going to get to that word in a little bit.
Sure.
But what are the kinds of things that you teach? What are the basics of teaching to be toy voice?
Yeah, so in the toy class, I also teach like a gibberish class, and then I do some video game stuff as well. But for toy specifically, I try to approach kind of how to recognize a toy script when you see it for the first time, because they can look real, real weird. They can be single sentences and then lots of individual words with strange sort of markings on them, like a slash or a period, in front of them, or in brackets or something like that. So we teach how to, to get people how to approach the script, how to lend their voice to whatever it is the script is going to do, and just sort of how to, maintain energy and maintain consistency without sounding robotic. Because it is really like, when you do a toy, you might have, a script that's like 500 lines, and they want to get through it as quickly as possible because, they've got this much material and they want to go through it as fast as they can. So being consistent and clean and being able to kind of get through stuff is very important. There's a lot of sort of things that you can do to practice that just by going through scripts, and just kind of how to autopilot some of it so that when you get to a certain point, you're in the right mindset and voice and zone, and then you can just make the adjustments you need to based on whether or not the script is concatenated.
And there's that word, concatenated.
There it is.
When one of my favorite things about doing this is my friends who we just talk about, voiceover a little bit, but just life in general more. And I say, send me your bio, because you never know all the things about your friends that the industry knows about your friends. And
Sure.
I saw you teach gibberish and concatenation.
Yeah, so concatenation is basically in a toy, especially, they're always saving space and saving money. The cheaper the chip that they put in the toy, the less space it has, the higher the profit value or the profit margin is. So if it's a cheap chip, holds less space, and they can cram more information in there by concatenating sentences. So rather than having you do the line like touch the blue button, touch the green button, touch the orange button, they might have you go touch the blue button, and then they'll let the computer build those things all together.
So it'll add the different colors.
Yep, it'll break it all apart. I mean, only the colors that they need, or the numbers they need, the letters, whatever it is, whatever the variables are. Concatenation gives a developer or production company or the computer itself the ability to build sentences from those component parts.
Okay, now you just did that willy-nilly. No,
Yeah.
because you've done a lot of it. How was it for you when you first started trying to do concatenation?
It was awkward because you don't know how to sort of get away, or what sort of tricks you can use in order to make it sound natural. One of the things we do in the class when we're able to, when we're actually present and have, access to everybody's files and technology, is we will set up, where people read a script in a concatenated way, and then we will put it together with the program so that you can play it based on those component pieces. And so then you really get a feel for, wow, I sound super slow, because, you might think like, when you're playing a game, touch this button to repeat a question or something like that, where it'll sound super slow when you put it all together. So there's definitely a little like push and pull that you would do in order to make it sound natural when you put it together. You might still hear breaks, but, it's going to sound smoother, more, real.
And I realize now that I have done concatenation.
Of course, we all have a thing.
Without knowing that's what it was. I'm on several sports games where I'm the announcer in the booth.
Totally.
Yeah, and it's 1st and 10 and blah, blah, blah. And he's back. Oh, and they're putting all that stuff together because you have gone through a whole thing. First down, and then whatever else is second down, third down, and whatever else happened, but they're just fitting it all together.
Yeah, I did some on the Hitman games, working with Jamie Mortellero. We did a bunch of the, like I was a bunch of thugs, because I usually 9 times out of 10, if I'm in a video
typecasting.
game, I'm a thug. Exactly.
There you go. Yeah.
But we'd had like, drop the pipe or something like that. Drop the gun. drop the crowbar. And we just all kinds of drop the chainsaw, whatever it is, like putting in all kinds of different silly sort of variables. And I think they tried that, and I think they had some success with it. It's pretty rare in a game because it really will sound kind of disjointed if you're not, real tight, or the editing isn't super tight. So it just kind of,
or you don't have enough control of your voice and your intonation.
It's hard. Yeah. Consistency is absolutely key. And not being too consistent where it all sounds the same, but being able to be in the right headspace and then make them slightly different, but, good enough that it'll all fit together.
Okay. This question came. Gavin, you mentioned, the band you were in. Actually, that wasn't the question I wanted, but what was the band you were in?
I was in a band called Dance Hall Crashers. We were a ska punk band in the 1990s. We played all over the world. We played shows with Blink when they were Blink before 182, and then Blink 182 and No Doubt, Third Eye Blind. We did all kinds of radio festivals in different countries, on the Warped Tour, stuff like that. That was a fun way to spend my days.
You had groupies.
Yeah, we did have some groupies, but our band had 2 female lead singers. So we would get a lot of female groupies, but they generally didn't really want much to do with us guys. So, and we were all married and either married or engaged or had kids, except for, a couple of us. And, we would live vicariously through them.
Oh, so. There you go. Now, this is that word.
Yes. What, concatenation?
Concatenation. How is that spelled?
CONCATENATION.
You win. That's right. A trip for 2. No. Concatenation. Now, what's the difference between? Actually, I kind of do know what the difference is, but you teach concatenation and gibberish. Why would you need to learn gibberish?
Because, man, it comes up all the time now. So I worked very briefly on The Sims, which has its own language, but it's still open to improvised gibberish. There's a lot of nonverbal stuff. Animal noises, not necessarily creature noises, but there's those too. Those are hard to teach because it's usually like you can either do those because you've been doing them since you were 4, or you can't. But, there's a lot of just nonverbal stuff that comes up, or making up your own words. There was a lot of weird nonverbal stuff on Furby that, it comes up. Somebody wanted to teach a class, so I was like, sure, okay, yeah, I could probably do that.
Well, give me an example of some gibberish nonverbal stuff that might come up in with a toy. Doesn't have to be Furby.
With a toy, it would probably just be weird sort of. I don't know. It's just kind of noise, either alien speak or weird noise.
Would you say that perhaps the skill you have to have most is a willingness to make a fool out of yourself and just jump in and do?
That's voiceover. Yeah,
that's voiceover.
I mean, you really shouldn't and don't need to have any shame. And it's, both my kids have started doing VO a little bit, and I try to kind of, get them more comfortable with that, where it's kind of like, nobody's going to laugh at you for doing any of this. I mean, they might. And if they do,
so what?
Yeah, if they do because they think you're dumb or whatever for doing it, so what? But all the people who are there hearing you, they want you to do that. So they're not going to laugh for that reason. If they're laughing, it's because you're funny.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I want to do something here just to have a little fun. Let's have a gibberish conversation. I'll start.
Okay.
Il a la famille. Okay, that's enough.
What are we talking about?
I have no idea. But that was fun nonetheless. Got another question here. Michael Sessoms. Keeping the same energy through the end of the session can be challenging. Any tips on keeping that energy up?
Coffee. Coffee helps. It's hard, especially first thing in the morning in Russian or Mandarin. It's definitely tough. I think trusting your engineer to kind of keep you on track and trusting them that if they're giving you the feedback that your energy's dipping or dropping, that they're right, and you just kind of have to get back into it. But yeah, it can totally be hard, especially if you're not used to it or if it's really animated or over the top. It can be a challenge.
Well,
I
I know for sure certain kinds of sessions take more energy out of you.
Oh yeah.
I'm always afraid, very afraid, when I get to the session and it says battle chatter.
Oh yeah. Battle chatter. Fun.
And not only do you have to keep your energy up, but you have to keep your volume up. And it's not just the shouting that's a problem for your voice. It's the shouting, but also the whispering.
Yeah. Any of that stress that you're putting on your larynx, especially. So anytime you're clenched or anything like that, it's going to be hard. And yet, I mean, just a lot of tea is really helpful. That I try to make sure that if I've got a session like that, coffee's great, but it'll probably make your mouth sticky, and you'll hear like all kinds of pops and clicks, and then the engineer is going to hate you
Yeah.
because they're going to have to clean so much. So
Well,
tea, is really-
they've got an app for that now.
they do. That's true. But I know, like editors though, like they really, a lot of them really take so much pride in it that they go through and they really kind of
They want to take them all out.
chop it all down. They don't want to lose anything precious.
Okay, and you got, let's see, Kristen Arena is back. So awesome. Gotta love The Sims.
Yeah, The Sims was a thing for sure. I think I worked on Sim City. I don't know if I worked on Sims 3. I might have. I don't recall. It's been a long time.
Couple more comments here. Michael Sessoms, The Sims frustrates me. You have
Yes.
to take them to the bathroom all the time.
Right?
I love the fiber out though. But I have no idea if that's a thing. I don't have any Sims. Do you actually have to take them to the bathroom?
Oh yeah. No, they're like your little people. And so it's almost like they're like a Tamagotchi. They're like a little, person that you're taking care of, and they have a place to live, and you go and you meet people and stuff. One fun fact about The Sims is that most of that stuff is actually scripted. So they have these three, or at least they had these three dictionaries. They had like short phrases, medium phrases, and long phrases. So in some of those sessions, you're doing ADR to what they've already got animated, and then you're going through three different, big old 3-ring binders full of scripts, trying to find what phrases you're going to use while doing ADR. They're super stressful. The funnest gig.
The phrases mean certain things. Yes?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I don't know what they are, but there's a bunch. If you look up Sims dictionary, there's a bunch of basic phrases that'll come up that are established gibberish things that they have, put into enough of a lexicon that Sims players know what they mean.
Wow. Well,
Yeah,
you know what?
right?
That's how language was born.
Exactly. And that's my background. I studied linguistics at Cal, so that's kind of how I came to approach this. When I went back to school after the band stopped, I knew I wanted to do this, and I thought rather than theater, I thought linguistics would be a really cool niche because no one seems to do that. And, I had like reasonable acting chops where I still, of course, needed to take, acting lessons proper. But I thought this would be a really interesting way to approach dialects and approach, different characters, is to know more about language and speech and how it all happens.
It's interesting. I've been seeing lately more game auditions that are in languages that are made up.
Yeah.
And you don't know exactly how to approach them.
Mm-hmm.
Often I just, I'm too busy today to spend the time on this.
I'm knocking TIE fighters around. But toss those.
I'll toss those.
Much work. Yeah.
Got a question.
No, I hear that. I usually read those because I feel like as long as I can figure out how I think I should say the words, then it's just then you just put your intention into whatever those are.
Yeah.
Same with gibberish.
The
intention is key.
I've done a few, but often I I realized that I don't want to work that hard on that audition now. I've got 5 other auditions here that I got to do.
It's nice when we get to the place where you can do that.
Yeah,
You
it
know, where you
is.
you're
It
like,
is.
meh,
But
somebody
you,
else will
but
really want it more than me and they'll get it. Great.
but you know, a little. I really think people would do better and feel better about themselves not trying to audition for everything that comes across
Yeah.
their desk.
It's not a good idea.
It's not a
I
good
mean,
idea. Often your excuse me, your agent is sending you auditions and they're hoping that they're in the ballpark.
yep.
Sometimes they're not.
They're
And
trusting you. If they sent it to you, they trust you.
yeah,
So to either know whether or not you're going to fit. Sometimes they send it to you even if you're kind of off specs because they're throwing you in as a curveball. So they're just usually expecting you to do what you do, not to go in there and then try to match what they're looking for. They're more just like get the intention across and do your thing because you're like your secret weapon or you're just like a curve that maybe will work, maybe it won't. But
and
yeah,
how
reading
many
everything
times how many
changes.
times have you auditioned for something and the specs were very specific, and then you heard it on the air 2 weeks later and it was diametrically opposed to the thing they said they were looking for?
Every damn day.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it drives me crazy, especially like with union TV stuff or something like that. You're like, oh yeah, they want it super down to earth and quiet and intimate and stuff, and then you hear it and it's like, it sounds like like your average sort of non-announcer, but it's like super announcery, and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
wild.
yeah.
That's what they do sometimes.
It's a wacky, and you know they're all committees. It's not one
Yeah.
person, so
hmm
one never knows.
And a lot of
Just
times somebody has more say than somebody else.
yeah,
So whoever wrote the casting docs may not have as much say as, the client who's signing the check, who says, no,
absolutely.
I want
And
it to sound like a big announcer
I
guy.
want it to sound like me. Yeah.
Exactly.
I
And
really
that
wanted
happens
to
all
do
the
these commercials myself, but since I can't, let me get some. Oh, okay.
Precisely. And I
Uh,
mean, we want those gigs. Those are great jobs to get. You get one of those, and I mean, sometimes you end up doing them for 10 or 15 years,
yeah,
and it's
and
rad.
I bring this up because a lot of people feel bad about how little they're booking. Well, first of all,
Mm.
you're never going to book the majority of things you're auditioning for. First of all,
No.
and secondly, it's not necessarily because you suck. Uh,
No.
More often than the time, somebody was chosen because there was something about them that spoke to them, not that your
Yeah.
read wasn't good. So
Right.
keep that in
It's
mind.
at Voice Tracks they had this weird sort of mural thing painted on the wall, but the sort of maxim that was there was it's selection, not rejection.
Yeah,
So you don't get the job and it's okay, but when you get to a point you've been doing it long enough and you're seeing enough scripts, it's just like you just read it and you forget about it.
yeah,
And then for me, it's like even jobs. It's like I'll do a job and I have no idea. The next day I don't know. I mean, I remember I did a thing, but I don't know what the words were. None of it.
yeah.
Um, I can hear it and get right back there, or I can look at it and know what it was. But it's just like you just don't. You don't want to, because the most important job is always the next one.
Yeah.
So it's like it's always just about looking for work and trying to stay working. And the more things you know how to do, the more, especially if you live in like a smaller market like I do, it's like the more I'm able to do stuff, the more I'll work. And
Well, let me ask you this: being in a small market these days is not as impactful of your career as it used to be with the internet.
Sure.
Have you found yourself branching out more into bigger jobs that you might not have been able to do before?
Well, I think I found, especially during COVID times, that I was able to get away or, do a lot more kinds of things from home. But I mean, for me, more than anything was when I signed with Atlas, who's my agent in Los Angeles and New York. When I signed with them, they were giving me more opportunities than I'd been seeing, especially in LA before. So it's like once I started getting those opportunities, then I actually started getting that work, which was pretty cool. And then once you start getting that work, then it's like you can translate it into, a lot of other things, which is really nice. But having the ability to do so much stuff from home these days, it's like pretty cool because I mean, for me, it's if I had a game session, I'm driving, because I usually prefer to drive than fly because once I get to the airport, I don't really want to take cars and stuff unless I'm going to like walk. So, given the opportunity, as you know, I will drive down. And, that's like a whole day's worth of not doing anything else, where it's like now it's like I've got a session for a video game client in LA. And then right after, I've got something else before I might have something different, and it's so much easier to have opportunities because everybody's at home.
Yeah.
There's so little work that's going on in studio, which I know it's starting to open back up. I'm still very sort of
Well, I
resistant and trying to stay home as much as possible,
it it's
just for
it's
work.
it's interesting. It seemed like it was picking up. Had a couple gigs
Yeah,
at Margarita Mix and a couple other studios in town,
I
and
saw
then
those.
the variant started.
Yeah,
The Delta thing, and suddenly some gigs that were supposed to be out at studios. No, we're going to do it from your home studio. I got
yeah.
a question here from Theodore Mezzacapo. Question for Gavin. When doing multiple voices, what are your techniques to switch between them fluidly?
Well, hopefully you don't have to do too many of them like back to back. I think for me, I just try to either make a face or have a place in mind where my characters are differentiated enough that I've got like a few sort of base places that I will go to, and then might add things to it. So I know that I'm going to go from one to another. So I basically just get to that sort of base zone and then attach whatever accent or sort of extra texture or anything like that. But hopefully you don't have to do them like all on the fly. That you'll do one and then you'll do another one. Sometimes you have to do back and forth, but that's mostly just like for fun, when you're
Yeah, I
showing
I
off.
I recommend students. I don't care how well you do this individual voice and this individual voice. It's a rare thing to put them in a conversation together.
Yeah,
Uh, because sometimes you're gonna have just a little overlap from this character to that character, or you get a little
sure.
confused, and I'm not quite into that other character yet, and but now I'm still in the old character. What happened? Ah.
Totally. It comes up though. I mean, I'm sure you've done games where you're talking to yourself. I've done games where I end up talking to myself, and you just, hopefully it's enough of a textural or pitch change that people don't automatically, flag that it's the same dude, or lady.
I got an inside comment here for you. We need to find a goddamn boat, Gavin.
It's the rumor. I hear that.
Yeah,
I hear
yeah.
that.
Those who know.
If you know,
Uh,
you know.
Speaking about being hired, Thomas mentioned, I was always told you don't hire you so you would never know what's going to win the gig.
True. I mean,
You
we
know,
don't hire
I've
ourselves. I
never
don't
heard
hire.
that phrase before, but it does make sense.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, hopefully you just earn it or something, but yeah, it's always up to somebody, never
Yeah,
up to us.
yeah, dig it.
That's why if they ever ask you like, what do you think? Are you satisfied with the read or something? Do you want to try anything else? And I'm like, if you are happy, then I am happy. That is my
Now let
job.
me ask you this:
Make
how
me happy.
long did it take you to get to that?
Uh, I think it was enough sort of working. I worked a lot with Tom Pinto, as you know
Oh, I
Tom.
know Tom well.
I worked a lot with Tom, and then as I would get more and more opportunities, especially during the times when I was like, I might have a week where I had like 18 or 19 jobs because I knew I had, like a gig every day on a toy, and then a gig like 2 or 3 days a week on a video game. And then I might have other stuff that I had to do in between for regular clients or something like that. When I was having those weeks where it was like crazy busy and I don't really have time to like see my wife and kids, then it was kind of like, I don't really give a shit, So it's kind of like I'm going to go in there, I'm going to do what I do, and you're either going to hire me or you're not,
Yeah.
So I would be doing these, these like workshops with Tom or these one-on-ones with him, and he's like, you've got this real just kind of f you sort of attitude when you read it, and it's like it works really well for a lot of this stuff. And I was like, well, good. I mean, I don't really have a ton of time, so I'm just trying to, do that and then clean the kitchen. It's like I don't really know. They'll buy it or they won't, but
Yeah.
it's like
Well,
the more
what's
I
interesting,
sound.
I
Like I
I
don't need it. They like it, I
I
guess.
have a theory that when you're trying too hard, that's what's coming through. That you're
Yeah.
trying too hard. When you're focused on every word, um, you're losing some of whatever that naturalness of yourself is.
Yeah.
Um, and I have watched myself go through periods where I'm paying, I think, way too much attention to, I'm doing this 30-second commercial audition, and now I've spent half an hour on it,
Oh,
and
geez.
I go back and wait. Take one was fine. Take two was
Yeah.
great. What
You
am
were
I
good enough.
doing? What am I doing? Trying to.
Yeah.
And every now and then I'll go through a little period like that where I'm getting extra picky. But what I'm
Yep.
finding, excuse me, what I'm finding is if I just really know who I am, what I'm talking about, and I just say it,
Yeah.
I book it.
Well, we get into those modes, where it's like maybe we're not working very much, and so you're really hypersensitive about, oh, this client never hires me, so I should spend some extra time reading this thing. Where it's like, I don't know. Sometimes it's just once you break through, and then you get to present the actual value that you as an actor, as a talent, can bring to them. Then they're like, oh, geez, why did we never hire you before, or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. But
And it's tough.
I've also been on the other side where I've done a few takes that they like, but
Hmm.
I felt I had one in me that
Sure.
was better,
Yep.
and usually that's the one they use.
Yeah, they do, especially if they trust you and you really have like a vision kind of, or you just feel like you're not getting your head around one particular part of a
Yeah,
commercial script or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
for
I
sure.
always say, listen, if you say, can I do another take, and they, oh no, we got it, we love it, move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah,
Don't
then leave them alone.
leave them alone.
Don't
Let's
try to
see.
prove to them. Yeah.
A few questions here. We're getting down to the end of it. Oh no.
Oh no!
Would you say honoring your improv skill or honing your improv skills is more important for the toy industry than overall acting skills?
I would not, because I would say that toys, by and large, are still, there's not going to be very much improv in them. Improv's great for, commercial stuff, especially when you can come up with a line that's a little bit funnier, especially in an audition. Although, the caveat there is you're going to do that in the audition, and then they're going
They're
to
going to
own
write
your
it into the
audition.
script and hire somebody else.
They're going to steal it from you. Yeah. No, it's like the improv stuff doesn't come up too much, honestly. And I mean, I felt like more often than not, especially for a really kind of a weird toy that has a lot of personality, my ability to, like my acting chops were way more useful in terms of getting things across, I think.
Okay, let's see. Oh, I got to take this one. It's from the UK. Jimmy
Oh,
Sharp. Hello.
hello.
Hello. How are you? Hello.
Hello.
Hello from the UK. How do you decide which voices to put in your reels? I never know whether to tick off typical gaming animation stereotypes or take a risk and give them something different.
I would always say whatever you can do, that you obviously want to have like your voice, whatever your natural speaking voice is, or at least something that's, represents that well. And then I think in like a gaming reel, I'd say put everything that you want, staying within whatever time, Dave tells you to do. I would say, put everything that you've got in there, because the more versatility you show them for games and stuff and animation,
I,
uh, the more valuable you'll be.
I am going to agree to a certain point. You do want to show that you have some versatility, but you want them to come away with a sense of you.
Yeah,
And
that's true
far
too.
too often, I've seen people put together demos that they're doing too many accents, too many
Hmm.
different kinds of voices, and never their natural speaking voice. And just
Mm.
because it's your natural speaking voice doesn't mean that it won't have a different thought, a different feel, louder, softer. You as a good person, you as a bad person, you as a scared person. But
Sure.
they've got to come away with a sense of you.
Yeah. No, and I mean that's something I had a job on a video game, and I think it was like a MOBA, one of those mobile or online battle arena multiplayer things, and I did a character And then the producer or the director asked me, like, can you look at this other character and just do it in the voice that you slated your name in? And I was like, you mean my normal voice? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, yeah, but it had kind of like an attitude to it, And I was like, oh, okay, sure. So that was something that definitely, like, that got me more work just
so,
from,
so you happened to be pissed off that day when you did the slate.
Well, my
Okay,
slate is
Gavin
always a little
Hammon.
grumpy. My slate's a little grumpy. It's always like Gavin Hammon or something like that.
Yeah. And then you go into the toy voice.
And then, yeah.
Listen, Gavin, it's 7
Dave.
o'clock, man. We got the hour. One, I want to say thank you. And you have brought a whole other idea, an area of voiceover that we haven't talked about before. And I love that. And it's also just great to see you and talk to you because I haven't seen you in at least a year, thanks to this.
I know, you too.
And I've never seen all your toys there.
No one has.
Well, listen.
It'd be hard to see all of them.
How can people get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you?
All my social stuff is my name, Gavin Hammon, Hammon, no D.
No D.
So yeah, most of the stuff I'm on Instagram and Twitter and all of that sort of stuff. I'm usually pretty good about responding to people's direct messages. I'm on Cameo. If you wanted, Kenny to say something weird, like a whole lot of people have had Kenny say some really weird shit. If you were into that, I'm on Cameo as Gavin Hammon, all the same.
I need to set up a Cameo page.
Yeah, you do, man. You absolutely do. I can't believe you don't have one. You should.
It's on my list of things to do every other day, and then something else pops up.
Sure. I'm happy to refer you. Or Melissa, she referred me. So.
Oh, okay. Well, refer me again. So that maybe that'll help.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. Well, listen, I'm going to let you go. We know how to get in touch with you, and I hope I can see you in person sometime before too long.
It has been too long.
Absolutely.
Dave, thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
Oh, the pleasure's been mine. Thank you for joining us. All right, Gavin Hammon, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Great guy, great voice actor with a whole other perspective and career path than so many of us have ever thought of even having. Glad that our careers intersect. I want you to know if you missed part of this and want every morsel, you can go to my YouTube channel, Dave Fennoy, Voiceover Training, and watch this and all the other Ask Dave Fennoy's Anything. If you are interested in voiceover workshop with me, voiceover private lessons, or having a demo done, only doing video game demos, you can visit davefennoy.com and get yourself going. In the meantime, I hope you're feeling well and book something. See you next week.